It is October 1972. Somewhere in the Andes Mountains, at an altitude of nearly 12,000 feet, 19 men are alive inside the wreckage of a plane. Outside, the temperature drops to -30. They have no food left. The bodies of their dead friends lie preserved in the snow around them. And they have just heard something on a salvaged radio. That will change everything. The search for them has been officially called off. No rescue is coming. At that moment, a 19-year-old medical student named Roberto Canessa looks out at the snow, looks back at his dying companions, and makes a decision that no ethics class, no religion, no human rulebook had ever prepared him for. How does a person choose to do the unthinkable? And once they do, what does that choice reveal about every single one of us? That is what we are going to find out today. Go back to October 12, 1972. Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 departs Carrasco International Airport in Montevideo. On board are 40 passengers and 5 crew. Most of the passengers are members of the Old Christians Club, a Uruguayan amateur rugby team, along with their friends and family. The youngest are teenagers, the oldest, parents. They are headed to Santiago, Chile, for a rugby match. They are athletic, educated, from good families. For most of them, this is their first time flying over the Andes. The plan is to land, play rugby, and fly home. The flight stops overnight in Mendoza, Argentina, due to weather. The next afternoon, October 13th, they resume the journey. The pilot reports clearing the mountains and begins descent toward Santiago. He is wrong. The plane enters a cloud bank. Visibility drops to nothing. At approximately 3:30 in the afternoon, the passengers feel a sudden lurch. The left wing clips a mountain ridge. The tail cone tears away. The plane carves through the rock face, losing its wings one by one. And what remains, the gutted fuselage, becomes a sled, shooting down a glacial slope at catastrophic speed, before burying its nose in a snowbank. T-Welvy people die on impact. More are critically injured. The survivors gather. They are at 3,570 meters elevation. The nearest road is on the other side of a mountain range. The nearest human being is, as far as they know, hundreds of kilometers away. This is where something important begins to happen inside the group. Something that psychology has a name for. In extreme survival scenarios, human beings undergo what researchers call situational attribution. We stop evaluating our actions against normal moral frameworks and begin evaluating them against one single question. Will this keep me alive? The moral code does not disappear. It is temporarily restructured around survival as the supreme value. For these survivors, that restructuring had not happened yet, but it is beginning. In the first days, they search the fuselage for food. Chocolate bars, crackers, a few bottles of wine. They ration carefully. They melt snow for water using pieces of metal heated in the sun. On October 21st, a search plane passes nearby. The survivors wave frantically. The plane does not see them. The fuselage, white against white snow, is nearly invisible from above. 8 days later, on October 29th, an avalanche buries the fuselage while the survivors sleep inside. E.I.'d more people die. The 19 who remain are trapped inside a sealed metal tube, in darkness, for 3 days before they can dig their way out. The food is now completely gone. It is here, in the silence after the avalanche, in the cold, with the bodies of their friends lying preserved in the snow outside, that Roberto Canessa and the other survivors face the decision. They debate it, for days, in the language of theology. Canessa, a medical student, argues first. He frames it not as desecration, but as medicine. The soul, he says, is already gone. What remains is the body, and the body can give life. This reframing is not cynicism. It is a textbook example of one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms the human mind possesses: cognitive dissonance reduction. When a person must take an action that conflicts with their values, the mind works urgently to close the gap, not by changing the action, but by reframing its meaning. The survivors do not stop believing cannibalism is wrong. They reframe the act entirely. The dead, they decide, would want them to live. Eating them is not a violation. It is a final gift. And with that reframe, fragile, painful, contested, they survive. The weeks that follow are methodical and brutal. They organize. They assign tasks. They make decisions by group agreement. They do not talk about what they are doing any more than necessary. They talk about home, about rugby, about their families. Several cannot bring themselves to participate. No one forces them. No one judges them out loud. By early December, the survivors who are still strong enough begin planning an expedition. Someone has to cross the Andes on foot and reach Chile. It is the only option left. On December 12th, Roberto Canessa and Nando Parrado, who had lost his mother and his sister in the crash, begin walking west. They have no mountaineering equipment. They have no map. Parrado later wrote, "It is not how you survive. It is why you survive." For 10 days they climb, descend, and push on, and spending time on mountain in heavy snowstorm in sleeping bags they had stitched. On December 20th, exhausted and nearly delirious, they reach a river valley in Chile. They find a cattle herder named Sergio Catalan. He cannot cross the rushing river to reach them. He throws a stone with a piece of paper wrapped around it. Canessa writes their situation on paper, wraps it around another stone, and throws it back. Catalan reads it. His expression changes. He understands what he is holding. He turns his horse without a word and rides for help. Canessa and Parrado sit by the river and wait. 2 days later, Chilean rescue helicopters reach the crash site. 16 people walk out of the Andes alive. The rescue on December 22nd and 23rd, 1972, ends 72 days of survival at altitude. Inside the helicopter, Canessa and Parrado sit wrapped in blankets. Their expressions are not triumph. They are the faces of people who went somewhere that most people have not been. At the hospital in San Fernando, Chile, they are treated for frostbite, dehydration, malnutrition. Canessa and Parrado calls his family. The calls that could not be made for 72 days. When the full story becomes public, including the cannibalism, the reaction worldwide is shock. Then, gradually, something closer to awe. The Catholic Church, after deliberation, confirmed that no religious law had been broken. Survival necessity, the Church concluded, does not constitute a violation of the sanctity of the dead. The survivors faced no legal consequences anywhere. In 1974, journalist Piers Paul Reed published Alive, based on direct interviews with the survivors. It became one of the best documented accounts of extreme human survival ever written. A film adaptation followed in 1993. The 2023 Film Society of the Snow revisited the story with the cooperation of surviving members of the group. Of the 16 survivors, 14 were still alive as of 2023. Canessa became a cardiologist. Parrado became a television host and public speaker. Now let us understand what was actually happening inside these men's minds. What they did was not a moral failure. It was a demonstration of how the human mind manages the impossible. The first mechanism, situational attribution. In crisis, the mind narrows to one question: will this keep me alive? The moral code does not disappear. It restructures. This is not corruption. It is architecture. The second, cognitive dissonance reduction. Canessa did not override his values. He reframed them. He did not become a different person. He became a person in an extraordinary situation, using the only tool available: meaning. The third factor is rarely discussed. They decided together. No single person carried the full weight. The group made it possible for each of them to carry their part. Looking back now, in hindsight, this was never really a story about cannibalism. It was a story about what the human mind does when the rulebook runs out, about how a group of ordinary people organized, debated, carried each other, and refused to stop. The resilience was always inside them. The decision was just the hardest expression of it. What this story asks of you is not whether you would do the same. It asks something harder. Do you understand why they did? Because if you do, you understand something about human beings that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. The decision they made was not monstrous. It was profoundly, uncomfortably human. If this story made you think differently about what you would do, this type of story shows that people in extreme can survive, then why not us? All we need is just a group of trusted people and inside fire which keep us moving forward. So if you like it, share it with someone who needs to think about it too, and follow us for more. Because for you it is free, but for us it's a motivation to bring new stories. New episode every 2 weeks. The next one will ask a question you have never considered before.